All right, sir. Well, this is Jesse Stewart here with my mentor, General Retired now, Bob Caslen. And when I was at the U.S. Ski Team Partner Summit, we were going to try and link you up with the athletes, but didn't have a chance to do it. So getting ready to go back and hang out with them again at the Parks in Utah. And would love to just get your thoughts on, this resilient-based lifestyle approach that I've taken to try and recover from my trauma. Focusing on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual planes of existence, and realizing that if I did not choose to live life on all four of those planes, I wasn't going to survive. So, just curious about your thoughts on that, sir.
Well, thanks, Jesse. I appreciate it. I have a lot of thoughts. So I just left as a superintendent of the United States Military Academy in West Point. I did that for 5 years, and before that, I had time in Iraq and a couple of tours, Afghanistan as well. When I took over in 2013, took over the military academy in 2013, the Army sports program, for example, was in the doldrums. We had not beaten Navy for about 13 or 14 years. It was an embarrassment on national TV. And frankly, when America looks at their Army, a lot of people see West Point and they see the Army-Navy football game as a symbol of what their Army ought to be like. And when they see the Army losing year after year after year after year, I think other than just the military academy itself and the graduates of the military academy has much bigger perspective, because so many people across the United States identify with their Army, particularly an Army of war. So when they see West Point losing over and over and over again, there was great concern. And so when I took over, General Ray Odierno was the Chief of Staff of the Army. And he said, Caslen, your number one mission is to beat Navy. I said, okay, we're going to beat Navy.
Not produce quality officers, but
beat Navy.
Okay.
Well, it was just, and stated that, of course, we had to produce officers that were qualified in the values of the United States Military Academy, the United States Army, and were confident enough to lead. So we started thinking about what does it mean to turn a program around, and what does it mean to create a culture that is a culture of winning, a culture of excellence. So when I left the United States Military Academy 5 years later, took us 3 years. We finally beat Navy. We beat Navy twice.
Back to back.
And this past year, we not only beat Navy, we beat the Air Force Academy the first time in 23 years. And we got the Commander-in-Chief trophy. And we also won our bowl game against the top 25 team. So it was a great year, but what did it take to transform the current culture of losing to a culture of winning, but not winning at all costs, winning in accordance with the values of the United States Military Academy to duty on our country. And I guess I thought a lot about that. But first of all, you had to find the right people and put them on the bus. We looked at the coach. We had to replace the coach. Made the decision that we had the right athletic director. An athlete at the United States Military Academy just doesn't focus on their athletics. Their primary mission is to be a cadet first, which means you had to embrace all the values and all the programs of the United States Military Academy because of their graduation requirements. So they had to be cadets. They had to comply with the military program. They have a physical program that they had to comply with. They have, of course, the academic program, which is one of the most challenging academic programs in the nation. So if you're going to be an athlete, you also had to be a cadet. If you're going to be a cadet, you had to meet all these other graduation requirements and all the other different programs. So we looked at exceeding and excelling in athletics as just not an athletic thing. It was excelling in excellence in everything that you did. So what does it mean to create a culture of excellence? Because Coach K, West Point graduate, by the way, coach of Duke, very successful, as everybody knows. Coach K says, I don't necessarily strive to win, I strive for excellence, because out of excellence, success naturally happens. And when you strive for excellence, the success naturally happens. We thought a lot about what does it mean to be excellent in everything that you do. What does it mean to be excellent in the classroom? What does it mean to be excellent in your company area with your company mates? What does it mean to be excellent on the practice field? What does it mean to be excellent on the fields of friendly strife? Because when you're excellent in all of that, then success will naturally happen. So we had to get the right people on the bus. We had to get, one of the hardest things I had to do was remove the coach and get the right coach. And of course, that's always a risk to make sure you have the right coach in itself. So when we went about to look for a coach, myself and the athletic director, myself as the president of the university and the athletic director, we were the search committee. We were the two that was on the search committee that went out and looked. And we felt we had the right guy, so we did. We picked Jeff Monken, and he turned out to be the right guy. In the assessment of the program, what we realized is we not only did not have a culture of excellence, but we did not have the mental toughness and the physical toughness. And we didn't have the endurance to be able to be competitive for 4 quarters. Now, let me explain what that means from a football perspective. So at the United States Military Academy, we're a Division I program. We're independent, similar to what Notre Dame is, an independent school and a Division I program. And you know, when we go out to recruit, one of our challenges in recruiting is that you have this 5-year obligation. So not only do you live in a regimental system under 4 years, now you're going to owe the United States government 5 years of your life. So there's not a lot of really great competitive athletes that are competitive for a lot of the Power 5 conferences that are going to go to a military academy knowing that they're going to give 9 years of their life, 5 after you graduate, 4 years itself, towards the military. So you had to make the case. So we're not going to get the very best of the best. We'll probably get the next level. But if you're going to be competent with that level of athletes, with the best of the best, you got to ensure that everybody's playing to the upper level of their capacity, the upper level of their potential and everything that they do. And in order to get there, you have to play in football anyway, 4 quarters. And in the 4th quarter, when you're dragging and you played 45 and 50 minutes of tough, hard-nosed football, and let's say it's 95 degrees with 90% humidity out there, you've got to be physically tough so that you're not only taking and absorbing the blow, but you're in a position physically and mentally and physically tough so that you are also delivering the blow at the same time. And the 4th quarter becomes the great equalizer. Because if you have the physical toughness and you have the endurance to persevere through the 4 quarters, because it is a great equalizer, you now have, because you're that 2nd level athlete, you now are competitive with the best of the athletes because you're physically better in shape, you're mentally and physically tougher. And when the 4th quarter comes around, it's now an equal ball game. And now the person who has the greatest desire to have the greatest outcome, in my opinion, is the one that's going to persevere and achieve that outcome. So you had to get to that particular level. So it's physical. It's a physical program to get yourself in the absolute best physical condition, not only for an anaerobic capacity with a 40-yard sprint, but also an aerobic capacity that's going to give you the mental and physical toughness to persevere and endure 4 quarters of football all the way to the very end. And then you had to have discipline, because discipline is so important in these competitive athletes. So when I first got there, in almost every one of our football games, we were turning the ball over 6 to 8 times. We were having 6 to 8 significant penalties, at the same time. And on average, here's the statistics. When you're playing a football game, you're going to get the ball on average 12 times. And if you're going to win in one of these games, you've got to put 30, 35 points on the board. And if you're going to put 30, 35 points on the board, that means you have to have either a touchdown or a field goal half the time that you get the ball. But if you are turning the ball over 4 to 6 times and you have a major penalty that's going to stop a drive another 6 to 8 times, you just do the math. The law of averages are against you. You're not going to have the capability and the capacity to be able to put the points on the board. And as a result of that, you lost the game. You don't care how mentally and physically tough you were. You lost the game because of poor discipline. So discipline is a tremendous component of all of this. So how do you develop the discipline so that you remain competitive for the entire thing? Well, discipline means you don't make the mistakes, you hold on to the ball, you don't have the interceptions, you don't have the penalties. When we played Army-Navy at the last year, if you go back and remember that game in the snowstorm and all that, at the very end of the game, Navy had the ball, and they drove about 70 yards, when all of a sudden at the very end, it came time to kick a field goal. But about 4 plays or 5 plays before the field goal, there were 2 5-yard penalties because of offsides and because of illegal procedure. Their offensive line, mentally, they committed 2 crucial mistakes, and they were put back 10 yards. So the last play of the game, it's a 45-yard field goal. It's a chip shot. It would have been a 35-yard field goal. But because they had the 2 5-yard penalties, it's now a 45 or 47-yard field goal. And he missed it to the left by no more than a foot. And Army persevered and won the football game. So in the 4th period, when it counted, in the mental toughness, in the capacity to persevere and have the discipline so that you don't make those stupid mistakes all the way to the very end, was the downfall of Navy, and they lost the game on the national TV audience, because of crazy things like that. So if you're going to build a culture of excellence, discipline, mental, physical toughness, and the physical endurance to be able to persevere for the entire thing is going to get there. But a culture of excellence, picture this, the way I best describe it is that if you're going to persevere with excellence, you're going to perform to the upper level of your potential in everything that you do. So let's just say that your performance is on average a bell-shaped curve. And in a bell-shaped curve, if you picture a bell-shaped curve, right down the middle is average. So your average performance is right there in the middle. You may go a little bit to the right, you may go a little bit to the left, below average, a little bit above average. But excellent is performing all the way to the upper level of that bell-shaped curve, so that you're performing to that upper percentage of your capacity, the upper percentage of your potential. And if you're going to perform to the upper level of your potential in everything that you're going to do, you prepare yourself mentally, you prepare yourself physically, so that in everything you do, you perform to that. You don't settle for mediocrity, because mediocrity is average. And excellence is the upper level of your potential in everything that you do. So if you're in practice and you're performing average, you're performing with mediocrity. It's the wrong habit to get into. If you're in the classroom preparing for a test or writing a paper, you perform with excellence. You don't perform with average. You don't settle for average, even in the classroom. You don't settle for average in a relationship. You don't settle for average in your homework assignment or the paper that you're writing. You don't settle for average on this is a tough day for practice, because average builds habits of mediocrity. And if you're going to perform with excellence, you're going to perform to the upper level of your potential in everything that you do. But here's the key: if you perform to the upper level of your potential in everything you do, then guess what? That now becomes the new average. And you throw a bell-shaped curve over the new average, and your performance has moved from here to the new average, and then your new upper level potential is over here. And you continue to perform to the upper level of the potential over here, that becomes your new average, and you can see this progression of excellence in everything that you do. And then you get to the capacity of being an Olympic champion, because only few can get to that particular level. And that's what it's going to take to get there. But it's the discipline to discipline yourself, not to be satisfied with average. Because being satisfied with average is being satisfied with mediocrity. And that's what's key. So when you have a culture of excellence, you don't tolerate average in what you do. You don't tolerate average on the practice field, you don't tolerate average in the classroom, you just don't tolerate average. Because tolerating average is tolerating mediocrity. And when you build that expectation of excellence, then you start believing that you have what it takes to be a champion. And you get there, and that's what it takes to get there. That's what our Army football team did. They learned how to perform with excellence in everything they did. They learned how to perform with excellence off the field as well. And they became a championship football team.
Wow, it's amazing, sir. I look back. I remember when I was able to bring my father and my stepmother to the Air Force Army game a few years back, and you met my father and stepmother. I remember my stepmother was absolutely just blown away at the fact that you went out with the coin toss, and you had your arms on the shoulder pads of the captains as you went out there, and she actually called it. She says Army is going to come back and beat Navy, which of course course, irritated my father, who, Navy Master Chief.
Yeah.
But, two things to that. So number one, I mean, the way the ski team is built up, and I think this will really speak to, is they have their A team, their B team, and their developmental team. So, your varsity, your junior varsity, and then your hopefuls, essentially. They're all part of the team, but that's how they classify. And if you go on and look up on their website, you'll see how that's broken down. But I think that really speaks to, I've seen so many B team athletes that I see their heart and I know that they're going to medal over some of those A team athletes in China in 2022. So I know they'll definitely get a lot out of this. And this next part, we can go back and break if you're not comfortable talking about it. I'll be able to edit it out on it. But with everything that you said about this culture of excellence, and I'm obviously not the only young officer that you decided to reach out to during your career. But for those of us that were so obsessed with excellence to the point that we, essentially drove ourselves to unsustainable levels, essentially. With me, my background was just regular OTC guy and was fortunate enough to go into command prior to the career course and then got promoted 2 years early. Looking back now throughout your career, and not just for the Army, but anybody in general, a high-performing individual. There's a lot of these athletes that I'll work with are the ones that have gotten hurt, and they have the same issues that we do of drinking and prescription drugs and et cetera. Looking back, is there any advice that you would be able to give to people that are either at that point where they're having to recover and essentially come into a new life of discovery, or anything that maybe you would have liked to maybe change about your style of dealing with that? Because to your defense, you had no idea what I was really dealing with. I was not honest with you or any of my bosses of my struggles.
Well, having a culture of excellence means that you're going to learn how to win. But if you remember what I said, you're not going to win at all costs. Cultures have a set of values, and inherent in those values are the values that help shape us and drive us. You can look at different teams that are out there, and some of those teams will win at all costs, but if you look at the values of the individuals and the values of the team, you never want to be part of that team whatsoever. And then you could look at other teams that are winning, and they learn how to win. But they're not only winning on the athletic field, they're also winning in everything else that they do. Because they're shaped by a set of values, and values drive that. So the way I look at the values is it's shaped by character. And if I'm going to be really proficient at something, I'm going to be a man of competence and a man of character. Because if I look at the relationships I have with my teammates and the relationships that I have on the field, that those relationships are shaped by trust, the trust that I have with my teammate. Those relationships are faced by the trust that I have with my coach. Those relationships are going to be shaped by the trust that I have with the greater audience. In the Army, that audience is our client, which is the American people. And that trust is so tremendously important. Steve Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. And he says that trust is a function of competence and character. Both of them. So you're tremendously competent, and you're also a leader of character. And you can't have one without the other, because you could be the most competent person in your class, but if you fail in character, or you fail in leadership. At West Point, we talk about that we educate, train, and inspire leaders of character. We don't say that we educate, train, and inspire leaders who are physically competent, or educate, train, and inspire leaders who are intellectually competent. Because you can be number one in your class, but if you fail in character, you fail in leadership. Why? Because you break the trust, and the trust relationship with the American people, the trust relationship with those you're leading, the trust relationship with your teammates, the trust relationship with your coach. It's simple as that. There's no shortage of newspaper reports of high-level officers that have achieved great levels of competence. And because of a character defect, they've lost the trust of their clients, or they've lost the trust of their teammates. And it all goes back to the point that character becomes a tremendous aspect of all of this. And character is really defined by the values that you've embraced. And not only the values you embrace, but the values that you've internalized. And how do you know what those values are? Just find yourself in a really challenging, compromising position that you don't have time to necessarily think about what right or wrong is. The natural reaction will be the manifestation of what you've internalized. It's like holding a cup of coffee. If I hold a cup of coffee and someone bumps my elbow and that coffee is filled to the top, whether I want to or not, what's in that cup is going to spill out. And when it spills out, you have the opportunity to see for yourself the reality of what was internalized. So when I'm faced with a compromising situation and something rattles and shakes me, how I react to that is the manifestation of what I've internalized. I may not like how I reacted to it, but whether I like it or whether I don't like it, what I saw is really the internalization of the value set I have. That's a part of me. So values become tremendously important. If character is important, the values that define that character is what really holds me to the discipline that's necessary to be a valued member of that organization, a valued member of the team. I remember the 25th Division in 2008 was heading over to Iraq for a year. And I was a division commander, one of my assistants, Bob Brown, was a brigadier general at the time, and he was captain of the Army basketball team when Coach K was the basketball coach for West Point before he went to Duke. So Bob Brown and Coach K had this great relationship, and he invited Coach K to talk to all the leadership of the division before we went to Iraq. And Coach K came and talked to us. And it was at the time, right before, when he came to talk to us, this was right before I think he went to Korea to coach the Olympic team and to bring back the gold medal in basketball for the United States of America. So he was the selected coach for Team USA. And he talked about how he went about to build a team. And he had, of course, everybody in the NBA was available to him. And who he actually wanted to bring as part of the team was not the ones who were the best players. He went and interviewed them. He went to their house. That's where he wanted to do the interviews, because he not only wanted to do the interview sitting right across the table like we are right here, he wanted to see how he interacted with his wife or how he interacted with the kids. Because when you see, he was measuring the character more than the physical competence of the individual. Because the character not only defined how well they're going to play, but it also defined how well they're going to play as a team and how well they're going to have relationships with their teammates. And he told us, he said, the most important thing to me was how well they were going to come together as a team. Because the previous Olympic basketball teams didn't get the gold medal because they all played as individuals, they never played as a team. And they never had that trust and character that built that trust. And as a result, we're just individuals out there not playing together as a team, just playing as individuals. So as he built the team, Team USA, he was looking at character more than he was even looking at competence. But character and competence builds that trust, and that trust is the ingredient that holds that team together. And that's why I think it's so tremendously important. But the character of the individual is important too. I'll tell you two quick stories. When I was in Iraq as a division commander, I had a battalion commander who was killed. He was loved, he was a great battalion commander, but he was killed by a suicide vehicle IED. And of course the battalion went through traumatic reaction to the commander's death. So we scrambled around to find a new commander. We got the commander, he was very competent, put him in command. And a couple of months later, the brigade commander says, "Sir, I got a problem with the new commander." He had a negligent discharge, which is something you don't want to have. He tried to tell his subordinates not to tell on him, so he's trying to hide it. He wasn't honest, a character defect. And then when the word finally got out, they had to do an investigation. And in the investigation, they found out that in the middle of all this, he's having an inappropriate relationship with the spouse of one of his staff officers. And there's all kinds of character issues. So we had to remove him from command. He was incredibly competent, but because he had character defects, he lost the trust of his superiors, he lost the trust of his subordinates, and the trust of his peers. And he lost the confidence to be able to command. And that because of the character defect, which really defines, the values that you live by. They were defective. We could no longer put him in command. So character and character development becomes so tremendously important in one's development towards excellence. Because with the right value set, they will move you into the acceptable and non-acceptable behaviors so that you can have the freedom to operate in between them towards winning, but winning the right way. Because when you have a value set that allows character or values that are outside of what's acceptable, then that'll put you on tangents. It's going to destroy the trust among your teammates, the trust among your clients, and the trust among the culture of people that you care about. And character becomes so tremendously important in this path towards excellence in other dimensions, and that's why.
Wow, I mean, that's some incredible insight. I try to tag that back to my path, and I know with me, this essentially AM300 has become this Phoenix Project idea, where I realized that I need to allow myself to burn down, like the Phoenix bird in the Greek mythology, to start over and rebuild from the ashes of good. And what I try to encourage a lot of the athletes that I work with and other people within the business world is, like, you don't have to actually burn down to ground level zero. Like, your Phoenix Project can start right up here. And like something, if there was somebody that was honest with me about some character defect, say, okay, let's nip it in the bud right here, and then start right here from that. And so that's some incredible insight. I just, out of curiosity, if metaphorically speaking, if you could shut down the internet for 30 seconds, the entire world, and you got to pop up a message on that screen that everybody was going to see for 30 seconds, what would it be?
I would say be a man and woman of character, because it doesn't matter how competent you are when you fail, with character you fail, and everything else. And be a man and woman of character in your private life as much as you would be in your public life. Do you live a private life that is different than your public life? Do you say things, do you do things, do you watch things that you do in private that you would not do in public? If so, then that would be a check of where your character really is. And so shutting down the internet is probably a good thing to do to lead a private life.
Yeah, I fought social media for the longest time, and now I'm having to deal with the requirements of the publisher, so I don't have a choice. But, well, sir, I appreciate the insight, and I look forward to sharing it with these athletes. It's amazing going there, and Steve Nyman, I don't really have many man crushes in the athletic world, based off of the type of men and women that we've had the opportunity to serve with in our careers. But there's this one guy, his name's Steve Nyman. It's there. He's about 6'7", the most physically gifted human being. He's an alpine skier. And unfortunately, he's gotten hurt right before key races in Olympics that have left him not being able to take over the mantle from Bodie Miller. But when I met him in Park City, Utah, it's hilarious how we're sitting there, like, I'm looking at him with this incredible eye. He's like, man, but what you did, what you guys do is so much cooler than what we do. We just race. And so it's amazing, that mutual respect. And so I know they're definitely diss up, especially those B team athletes that are being told by sponsors, sorry, we're not going to put Oakley on your. I'm not calling it Oakley or anything, but just an example that they can't get those tier 1 level sponsorships because they fall into that. Yeah. So this will definitely resonate with them, and I just want to publicly thank you, sir, because you took me under your wing as a young major, and at a time that, while I was absolutely devastated that I wasn't able to continue to serve as your aide for that final deployment to Iraq for you, I can say now, looking back, that you were put in my life for a whole another reason other than to, for me to be your aide. Because now we look, 6 years down the road now, 7 years, and you're retired now. I've been retired for 6 years, believe it or not, and wish the best of luck to you and look forward to getting those athletes out.
Thanks for what you're doing, Jesse. Thanks for your reaching out. Thanks for telling your story. Thanks for your transparency. You will help and inspire men and women for years as a result of your experiences. So everything works out for the best, and there are higher callings for them to be able to join them for sure. Just kind of an outreach to the ski team. I love the ski team because, you know, I went through high school in Vermont. My dad owned a ski lodge at Jay Peak, so some of the skiers probably recognize or remember where Jay Peak is in northern Vermont. And my dad had a ski lodge right there, so I spent a lot of time on Jay Peak. I was on a high school ski team and absolutely loved it. And as a B squatter, I was a B squad football player. I remember having one of the coaches say, "You'll never be able to play varsity," and that just motivated me more than anything else. And I just persisted and became consistent in getting better and better and better. And that opportunity presents itself. The challenge is you never know when it will be there. But when it shows up, you got to be ready. And being a B team player helps prepare you for that opportunity when it shows up. So when it's there, take advantage of it. And I remember playing B squad, and all of a sudden, boom, I had the chance to play varsity, and I took advantage of it.
You know, one final thing just about the character defects. That's a question I'm often asked. You know, like what is your, you know, what are you afraid of, and what is your biggest character defect? I mean, there's nothing I can really think that I'm afraid of other than maybe failure, and that's a character defect that I think, you know, motivated me as a young varsity athlete as a freshman in high school. But I can now say, and looking back, and I look forward to sharing this with, you know, people I work with and who'll ever listen, my single biggest character defect, looking back on it, was my unwillingness to be vulnerable and thinking that I had to hide behind, you know, all those masks of masculinity that, you know, those of us that serve in the capacity that you and I did often think that we do. And however, that has been probably my single saving grace over the last year and a half, has been the willingness to become vulnerable. And you know, maybe for another time when you have an opportunity to think about it, we can have that discussion, because you know, that's probably the single thing that I've been able to do that has been a game changer for me over the last 18 months.
Good. Look forward to it.
And he's godfather of my daughter. So, all right, thanks, sir. I appreciate it.